And we know the EPA, under its new head, Scott Pruitt, seems to be abandoning its core mission, which is protecting the environment. Now, he's doing so by, of course, eliminating a lot of environmental regulations. Regulations that Pruitt, a climate change denier, basically says, we don't really need that. We don't really need climate change regulations. No, they hurt business too much. The business that happens to pay my paychecks. Now, that, of course, doesn't make any sense, not to you, not to me, and not to Fox News host Chris Wallace. Now, on Sunday, Wallace grilled Pruitt over the direction that the EPA is moving in. Let's take a look.
One of the key priorities of the administration is to improve air quality beyond the 60% attainment that we see. That's not been a focal point over the last several years as much as it should be anyway.
And you think and let me just ask, and you think that rewriting, in effect doing away with the Clean Power Plan is going to improve air quality, which you say is a major goal?
Look, Chris, I think what we have to keep in mind is that the EPA only possesses authority that Congress gives it. And the EPA has tried twice to regulate CO2. One with the tailoring rule, and the Supreme Court struck it down in the UR decision. And secondly, the Clean Power Plan that the President introduced in 2015, which is subject to a U.S. Supreme Court stay. As much as we want to see progress made with clean air and clean water, with an understanding that we can also grow jobs, we have to do so within the framework of what Congress has passed. The tools have to be in the toolbox. The past administration just made it up. They reimagined authority under the statute. There's a commitment with the new administration to have a pro-growth, pro-environment approach to these issues, but also to respect rule of law. You've talked about many times the regulatory overreach by executive fiat that the previous administration engaged in. We can't continue that process because what happens, Chris, is clean air is not advanced because you have litigation such as the Clean Power Plan, and you have stays of enforcement against that Clean Power Plan, and there's no progress being made with clean air, and we also are spending money on litigation.
Okay, so it's funny how he mentions litigation so much. Oh man, we can't go forward with these Clean Power Plan because litigation. I mean, somebody keeps suing. Yeah. Hey, jackass, it was you. You kept suing the EPA. You kept suing the EPA over every single regulation. And now you are head of the EPA, and you're saying, man, we can't go forward with this legislation because I sued a whole bunch of times to stop the legislation. That is why we cannot go forward with clean power legislation. Oh my God. It's fucking ridiculous, man. Look, the thing is this guy, Scott Pruitt, worked on behalf of the fossil fuel corporations. So he sued all sorts of times. And again, now he's using that as justification to get rid of these regulations, to end the climate agreement with Paris and the Obama Clean Power Plan. It's amazing. Now, as for having to do executive orders, well, Obama only had to do those executive orders because, again, we have a major political party that doesn't agree that climate change is even happening. They're not going to do anything about that. So Obama had to go around them, and it sucks that he had to go around them because in order to do it, well, he had to do executive orders, and executive orders can be undone, as we've been seeing with President Trump rolling back all these climate regulations. But that's what happens when you have a Congress where half of them don't believe in facts. They don't accept the facts. They don't accept the science. Now, when it comes to science, when it comes to climate change, again, the mere existence of climate change ends up threatening the bottom line of some of these fossil fuel companies that pay these people, that pay these politicians to be against science. Which is why, of course, Pruitt can't even admit that it really exists. Now, I want you to watch Chris Wallace. He's going to be not only he's not only going to do some journalism here, but he's going to be reasonable, and he's going to challenge Pruitt on his bullshit. So let's take a look at that. I love it.
You had a famous exchange a couple of months ago, actually last month, that I'd like to play right now.
Do you believe that it's been proven that CO2 is the primary control knob for climate? Do you believe that?
No, I would not agree that it's a primary contributor to the global warming that we see.
Mr. Pruitt, there are all kinds of studies that contradict you. The UN's panel on climate change says it is at least 95% more than half the temperature increase since the mid-20th century is due to human activities. NOAA, that's our own National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, says there's more carbon dioxide now than in the last 400,000 years, and NOAA says 2015 and 2016 are the two hottest years on record. Mr. Pruitt, are we supposed to believe that that's all a coincidence?
No, look, Chris, I've said through the process, in my confirmation process, individually with senators as well, that there's a warming trend. The climate is changing, and human activity contributes to that change in some measure. The real issue is how much we contribute to it, and measuring that with precision. But then also, what is the process as far as response? What can we do about it? The tools in the toolbox to address the CO2 issue.
You're kind of sugarcoating what you said. You said there, I would not agree that carbon CO2 is a primary contributor to global warming. And the question I have is, what if you're wrong? What if, in fact, the Earth is warming? What if it is causing dramatic climate change, and that we as humans, through carbon emissions, are contributing to it? Simple question. What if you're wrong?
See, look, let me say to you, CO2 contributes to greenhouse gas. It has a greenhouse gas effect and global warming, as methane does, and other types of gases. The issue is how much we contribute to it from a human activity perspective, and then what can be done about it from a process perspective, Chris.
But don't you think the fact that we have these coal power plants belching carbon emissions into the air, do you don't think that is a role?
I think that we've done it better than anybody in the world at burning coal clean in a clean fashion.
There is so much wrong with that. So much wrong. But one thing that wasn't wrong is Chris Wallace actually challenging him on facts, saying, "Wait a minute here, you're wrong." And not only that, but you were saying things earlier that you were not saying now. Isn't that a little weird? Interesting. Now, here's the other thing, right? His final question: what if you're wrong? Well, you are wrong. He is wrong. Pruitt's absolutely wrong. See, he made these statements earlier. CO2, not a driver of climate change. And now he's saying, well, actually, no. No, well, actually, yeah, it is having impact, but we don't know the impact. We don't know. That's kind of a 180 on that issue. And now, like a soft waffling on that issue. Okay. No, the thing is, we do contribute to climate change. There's monumental evidence. As Wallace pointed out, we've had a tremendous impact from the industrial age and on. The more emissions that we put out for carbon and methane, the warmer the planet gets. That is elementary fact. And all the scientists, hey, they knew about it. And they were telling us since the 70s, hey, you know, we're having an issue on climate change. We're having an issue here. Why don't we actually do something about it? Well, that would be nice, right? Now, finally, I want to take issue with one of his last statements. I think that we've done better than anyone in the world at burning coal cleanly. Well, wait a minute. You don't burn coal cleanly. That is not a thing. Okay, clean coal, not real. It's like the tooth fairy, the Easter bunny, or the idea that Donald Trump's actually some sort of millionaire or billionaire. I don't think he is. It's not real. Okay? And that goes to the idea of, well, hey, look what China and India though. And throughout this whole thing, it's a long video. It's 10 minutes long. So you should check it out. I'll put it in the description, where he talks about and tries to use China and India as an excuse. Well, I mean, look, China and India, man, they're still burning lots of coal, so we shouldn't, we shouldn't have to scale back our emissions. Well, China and India, they're still developing countries, and they had been developing a lot later than the United States developed. When it comes to years that the United States has burned coal and oil and put out all these emissions, we've been doing it for far longer than China and India. And China and India points that out and says, hey, wait a minute, we're still developing. We don't have these technologies quite that you have, except now that, by the way, China is now #1 in solar production. So there's that. These politicians and these oil, fossil fuel shills, they'll come out and say, yeah, but China and India, that means we don't actually have to do anything. No, you actually have to do something, Because again, America, we've been burning fossil fuels for a lot longer than some of these other countries. And that's not a good excuse to say that since they're still burning fossil fuels and they're still developing, that we can still burn fossil fuels even after we've developed and have all of these alternative energies that we can switch to. No, that's not a good excuse. That's a shit excuse. And it's bullshit. Okay? And look, again, both China and India, they are stepping up to take on climate change. Because unlike us, we actually believe in this stuff. And it's not just a belief. It's, hey, we've looked at the facts, we've looked at the evidence, and not only is renewable energy just smart and now cheaper, it's also better for the environment, and it's also better to handle the issue of climate change. But they're going forward, and now we are going backwards. All because of people like Pruitt and the fossil fuel corporations that essentially own the government and want to put profits over people and the environment. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.